Did you know for the last 17 years, PlayStation has been closing down studios consistently? And did you know that Nintendo has been acquiring new ones and actually building new ones from within? In fact, this all started back in 2013 with the Wii U. The Wii U was most definitely Nintendo's worst generation ever. It was the biggest flop ever that Nintendo had, if you're not counting the Virtual Boy. But the Virtual Boy wasn't really a console the way the Wii U was. So I would argue that the Wii U was definitely Nintendo's biggest failure. The only reason they didn't really go under well is because they're very smart with their finances. They don't borrow money. And there's the fact that their games still sell well, and the 3DS still sold at least 70 million or so handhelds. So they didn't do too bad, but they definitely were at their very worst. And despite that, they were actually still growing and still building, while PlayStation, on the other hand, was constantly shutting down studios and selling buildings. So let's go ahead and let's go year by year, starting from 2013, to see how many studios PlayStation has closed down and how many acquisitions Nintendo made. In 2013, Nintendo would expand their One Up Studios. This would be the studio that would focus on supporting Mario, Zelda, and other large scale Nintendo projects. Fast forward to 2015, Nintendo would expand their research and development into Europe, and the focus here was for game engines, tools, and technical infrastructure. We now get to the year 2016, where PlayStation would close down Evolution Studios and lay off 55 employees. And this was a studio that was known for making racing games, Drive Club, and MotorStorm. PlayStation in the following year would close down another studio in 2017, this time being Gorilla Campbridge, and their focus was handheld shooters. And one game they were known for was Killzone Mercenary. So Killzone Mercenary, I guess, was a PlayStation portable game. We do not know how many employees were laid off and were working for Gorilla Campbridge when it closed down. In the year 2020, Manchester Studios would be closed by PlayStation. Their focus was virtual reality projects, early PlayStation VR development. Meanwhile, Nintendo would acquire Next Level Games, who they have worked with for a while, and their focus was Luigi's Mansion series, multiplayer co-op titles as well. 2 years later, in the year of 2022, Nintendo would acquire SRD Company. Their focus was core Nintendo programming for Mario and Zelda, and they've been doing that for decades apparently. On top of that, Nintendo would also acquire a motion picture studio, and they would turn it into Nintendo Pictures. And their focus, of course, is cutscenes, animation, and visual production. It's worth noting that before they became Nintendo Pictures, they still had a deal to make certain cutscenes for PlayStation video games. So people got confused when they saw their name added in the credits of certain PlayStation games, but that's because they were already contracted to do that before Nintendo had acquired them. In the year 2023, we would see PlayStation close down Pixopolis, which was focusing on small, creative, experimental titles like Concrete Genie. I have never heard of that. I don't know how big this studio was. It doesn't say how many people were laid off, but that's another studio that they closed down. Meanwhile, in that same year, Nintendo would end up creating Nintendo Systems, and their main focus was online services, Nintendo accounts, backend infrastructure. So everything that I guess has to do with Nintendo Online, Nintendo NSO, and stuff like that. In the year 2024, we would see PlayStation closing down multiple studios while Nintendo acquires some new ones. But starting with PlayStation, they would shut down London Studios, they would shut down Neon Koei, and they would shut down Firewalk Studios. London Studios closed, and it was about 900 employees that was laid off. So that was a very big closure right there, and that was a lot of workers who got laid off. That might be the biggest studio that was closed down by PlayStation, as far as I'm concerned. Their focus was casual social games like SingStar, and they also did some live service projects as well. Neon Koi, which was closed down, we don't know how many people were laid off, but their focus was mobile live service development. So I guess live service games for mobile phones, I'm assuming that's what that means. Then we go to Firewalk Studios, which is most infamous for Concord, the worst selling game of all time, the biggest failure, a bigger failure than ET for the Atari. So yeah, Firewalk Studios, that closed down, and it was 200 plus layoffs. And of course, they were known for Concord, their only live service game. They were acquired by PlayStation because of that game, believe it or not. And so that has to be probably one of the biggest failures ever for PlayStation, but I would say London Studios definitely lost way more employees and was a much bigger shutdown. Nintendo, on the other hand, would have a very interesting acquisition. They would acquire Shiver Entertainment, and I remember when this happened. Shiver Entertainment was most famous for porting and optimizing Hogwarts Legacy for the Nintendo Switch. They did do some other Switch titles, but that was the one that really got Nintendo's attention. Apparently because Hogwarts Legacy was a game that is very big and looks great on other systems. It looks okay on the Switch, but the fact that they were able to get it on the Switch was something that I guess really impressed Nintendo. So of course this strengthens Nintendo's technical and porting capabilities, helps bring more third-party games to the platform. I'm not sure if that's the reason Nintendo actually acquired them, if that's what they're going to have them do, or if it's to, polish up any games that get ported over. But nevertheless, this was actually a pretty smart acquisition on their part. So this now brings us to the current year of 2026, where PlayStation would shut down Blue Point Games, and they would lay off 70 employees from that studio. And this came as a huge shock to PlayStation fans and was very disappointing. This really caused a big outrage among the PlayStation fan base because they apparently were good at doing remakes. They did a remake of a game called Demon Souls, a game called Shadow of the Colossus, and for some reason they got shut down, and it was after a failed God of War live service game that they were working on. It was not their idea to make that game, but they tried doing it anyways. It didn't work out. The game got canceled, and just recently PlayStation decided to shut them down, which could only mean that it's for financial reasons. On top of that, though, immediately after that, they would shut down Dark Outlaw Games. And Dark Outlaw Games had about 50 employees. And what's crazy about this is that Dark Outlaw Games was literally founded in 2025. So they were only alive for 1 year before PlayStation shut them down. Their focus apparently was live service, multiplayer games, and an unreleased project, although many people were saying that they were not working on a live service game when it got shut down. It was going to be a single player adventure game. So yeah, these are the very last two big studios that PlayStation had closed down, and it was just recently here in 2026. Blue Point Games and Dark Outlaw Games, which never even got to make a single game. But meanwhile, on the other hand, Nintendo had some pretty good acquisitions. They acquired Bandai Namco of Singapore, which is now Nintendo Studios of Singapore. Bandai Namco, of course, has helped Nintendo with other games like Kirby Air Riders. I believe they helped work on the Splatoon 3 game as well, and this is definitely a lot of talent that Nintendo was most familiar with. We don't know if Nintendo just outright bought them or if Bandai Namco was just going to close the studio down and Nintendo decided to step in and save the day and say, hey, we like the talent here, we're familiar with them, so we want them. But nevertheless, it was a very smart acquisition, and like I said, they did major support for Splatoon and Kirby. So yeah, there you have it, guys. That would be multiple failures, multiple closures from PlayStation, 10 studios shut down, and 1,200 people laid off. Minimum 1,200 people laid off. And with Nintendo, about 5 or 6 expansions, acquisitions, virtually no shutdown waves, and very high stability. So yeah, Nintendo has been growing and outgrowing PlayStation ever since the Wii U, and the Wii U was Nintendo's biggest failure, and yet somehow it's when Nintendo started to get bigger and better in the gaming world against PlayStation. It's going to be interesting to see what PlayStation shuts down next, and as I'm recording this, I just read that Sony has actually announced that they're going to lay off more employees, not from PlayStation, but from other different divisions that they have. In fact, their television and TV division apparently is going to be going away. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. What other studios do you guys think will be shut down in the near future from PlayStation? And do you think Nintendo's going to make some more acquisitions? Are they going to hire more talent? What studio do you think Nintendo is going to really buff up? You know, they've been making acquisitions, but they've also been expanding the size of certain studios as well. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you staying and watching this video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and I will talk to each and every single one of you guys later. Take care.